All right. Welcome, everybody, to Velocity Work Live, another episode with another awesome human who happens to be running a great business. So today I have Melanie Leonard of Streamlined.legal. Do you say Streamlined Legal or Streamlined.legal?
Either one works. I say Streamline Legal, but if you want to find us online, you're going to want to put that dot in there.
Okay, perfect. Well, welcome to the show and thanks so much for coming.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh my gosh, me too. I was pumped when this all worked out for today, and I know that the questions I have for you that I tend to ask the people that are on here, I can't wait to hear what you have to say and impart some of your wisdom with people who are listening.
My hard-earned wisdom after all these years of trying and trying and retrying and trying some more.
Yes, totally.
Excellent.
Well, okay. Your business is streamlined.legal. The first question I want to ask is how you lifted this business off the ground. And whatever comes to mind is totally fine. But everybody watching this, uh, most people watching this have likely started their own thing. And there's a lot to lift a business off of the ground. So I'm curious what comes to mind with that. So if you want to share a little bit about like how you got to the point where you decided to lift something off the ground, and then that first, like that grind phase of lifting it off the ground. How'd you do it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I actually have two stories to share there because this is my second business. So
Mm,
the first business I started was I started my own law firm.
mm,
And that really came about because I had, graduated law school, went to work at a couple different firms, and I really wasn't happy working in these small firms, and I actually got fired from my last law firm that I worked at. And it was a situation where, it came totally out of the blue, at least to me. And, I had had reviews and they were fine. And, there were no complaints that I knew of. But then it got to a point where they're like, yeah, you're fired. And I felt so helpless. Like I felt like, well, there's nothing I can do. It's their business. They made this decision. What am I going to do? So I really just didn't ever want that feeling again.
mm.
And so I thought, well, if I start my own business, then no one can fire me, you know? And I was definitely a bit naive at the time because I mean, I'd never started a business before. I didn't know anything about it. And so, I just didn't want that feeling ever again. I didn't want to be fired. And so I thought, well, I'll start my own business. I have my law degree, find some clients, do the same work I'm doing now essentially,
Mhm.
and be able to build that. I had that confidence because I was dating a guy who I eventually ended up marrying, who had his own business, and so I thought, well, if he can do it, I can do it. Like, how hard could it be? Little did I know, it is very hard. you
Yeah.
know, so I so I decided to start my own business. I was doing residential real estate. I could do a flat fee. I didn't have to track hours and send out bills and all this craziness. So at the time, it worked out really, really well. And I really enjoyed that experience, but it was a lot at the very beginning. Thankfully at the time, I didn't have kids. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have all that stuff. Right. But,
Mhm.
it was a lot of grind. It was like, who can I talk to today? Where am I going to find this business now? When am I going to do the business when I'm trying to find the business and vice versa? So yeah, it was painful.
Mhm.
But again, I once I got a taste of that, like working for myself, now I could never go back because, now the idea of having to, check in with someone or, get to figure out what they want me to do and just it just would not go as well now.
Mhm.
So it's definitely something I got used to. But anyway, so after my law firm, I decided at a certain point I was really just getting burnt out of legal practice. And I enjoyed helping other attorneys build their businesses far more than I did building my own practice. And
Mhm.
so I got to a point there, same kind of like breaking point kind of thing where I was like, this isn't working. Like this isn't serving me anymore. This law firm is really just it felt like a big weight around my neck kind of thing.
Mhm.
And so I thought, well, what other skills do I have? What other things can I do? And so I decided to take what I had been doing just kind of on the side for fun with other attorneys and turn that into a business. And I think part of why it was made easier to do that was because I had that experience of starting my law firm, right? So
Mhm.
I felt like by that point, I had had that law firm for about 12, 13 years. I felt like, I had learned some stuff about how to run a business.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel like I was starting from scratch, frankly. Like I felt like I'm substituting in the clients and the business and stuff like that, but it's still a business, it's still a service business. And so it
Mhm.
felt a little bit easier just because I had some confidence around certain things.
Mhm.
But the reality is this business has grown far beyond and much larger than the law firm ever was. And so
Mm.
now I'm still continually having to learn learn new things and to be able to grow this business. But it definitely was easier at the beginning just because I felt like I had that experience before of having to start a business from total scratch. Like with the law
Yeah.
firm, I had never done anything like that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I didn't think about that before this conversation, that because I think it's an advantage if you've started your first already and then you decide to start something different. You just have an advantage over someone who's their first time. Like, you don't even know what you're getting yourself into when you start a business. You think you do, but you do
Yeah.
not. So and
Yeah.
so
No,
that
I
yeah.
agree. I feel like the things that took me like 10 plus years with my law firm to figure out and put into place and start seeing some good results from,
Mhm.
like I feel like I duplicated all of that in about 18 months with this business,
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
like, okay, well I've got that. I can kind of fast track that part, right? And like
Yeah.
I said, I'm still growing and learning things as well, but at least I didn't have to redo it. Didn't take me 10 years to get to where I was before. It took about 18 months, which was nice.
That's yeah. There's a reason, I don't know if you're familiar with this, and for listeners who may or may not be. In tech, my husband's in tech and has been for a long time. And one thing that I noticed and we talk about is that investors are quicker to invest in second time founders. Even if the first was a failure, they're
Mhm.
still quicker to invest in their second thing because now their experience is very, very different. They're entering a different game your second time around. So even funding comes easier if it's not just your first.
Yeah, I didn't
Um,
know that, but I definitely agree with it. That's for sure.
yeah, yeah, same. Now the and I don't know if other people know this or not. I had a business in 2008, 9, 10, 11, failed. Totally I just couldn't figure it out. I didn't it was too early. I didn't have the experience that I have now under my belt. Maybe it wouldn't have failed had I just kept slogging through to, like, get to a place to figure it out, but I decided to stop because it was like, "This isn't working, and I don't have the energy to keep doing this, and I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm trying, but I don't know what." So anyway, many years pass, a lot more experience under my belt. Second time around, so much faster and easier than
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, and I did struggle with that decision a bit because, of course, that was the first business I had ever built. It was before I had kids. Like I felt like it was
Mhm,
almost my child kind of thing. I had put a whole bunch of blood, sweat, and tears into that business, and so it was
mm,
really hard to say, either I'm just going to shut it down or sell it or whatever I wanted to do. I ended up actually selling off a lot of the assets of the firm
mm,
so that another attorney bought it and has been able to take advantage of those, but which felt nice because then I felt like, they kind of had a life that continued on without me. But
mhm.
frankly, at the time, I was really in a headspace where it was like, I'm done. Like
Yeah.
if I get some money for it, that would be great. If someone else gets benefit from this stuff, that's great. But I wasn't going to let it stop me. Like I had already
Mhm.
made up my mind. This is what I want to do, and this is how I want to change things. So the sale for me was really just an added bonus or benefit.
So good. Okay. So then when I ask you, which you kind of already said, I'm just gonna see if there's anything else that comes to mind. With Streamline Legal, when I asked you, like, how did you lift it off the ground? So you did it in a much smarter way, right? The second time around with the second business. So what stands out? Like what were some of the big levers that you pulled to lift it off the ground faster?
I hired faster.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, I
You know,
wondered if you were gonna talk about people. Yeah.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh, yeah. There's that saying about, what is it? Hire slow, fire fast, or whatever it is. For me, I recognized much faster the second time around the fact that if I'm gonna leverage this, and growth has always been my goal and still to this day remains my goal,
Mhm.
but with that goal in mind, I knew that I had to leverage other people's time and
Mm.
other things, or else, I'm only one person. I'm limited in my time of, I only have this many hours in a day and this much energy and
Right.
this much, money. And so I had to be able to leverage other people and other things. And so I definitely hired much faster,
Mm.
and have continued to hire at a faster pace than I ever did with my law firm, which has
Mm.
been fantastic.
Yeah.
A little scarier, of course, because, at the pace I was hiring at the law firm, I was much more conservative and felt a lot more like, I could financially handle these new hires and things like that. Now, it's not that now when I hire, I still consider all that stuff, of course, but I have more confidence in my plan, right? I'm like, okay, well, I'm hiring this person, which means I need to get this many more clients, which means I have
Mhm.
to have this much more in marketing and this much more in sales and all that. So you work it backwards. At the
Yes.
time in my law firm, I wasn't thinking that way. I just didn't know. Like, I wasn't taught to think
Mhm.
that way yet. And so I definitely was a lot more conservative and scared about putting out that financial, what I felt was an uncertainty of a new hire. Now I don't feel like it's quite as uncertain before, because I have this plan and because I'm evaluating these new hires in a different light, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Do
so that's
you
been really helpful.
I'm curious how you think about when you hire someone now, because at that I totally agree. I think that's super smart that you reverse engineer from like it's an investment and you expect to get a
Oh, yeah.
return on the investment. It's not like you're just throwing the money out to the ether, like, hope this works out. Like, that's not
Yeah.
how this works. And so you're very deliberate about the money that you spend and what you should expect to get back. And so what I'm curious in your mind, and it probably depends on the position, but how do you think about or approach the inevitable delay, right, on the maximum investment that's gonna come back just with onboarding and training and, like,
Sure.
how do you factor that in when you think about making a new hire? Is it like a 3-month before much? Like, tell me how you think about it.
Yeah, for me, 3 months is way too long. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
I honestly don't have that much saved up in some, savings account or whatever investment account that I can put into that much time.
Right.
So a couple of things that I think about is, number 1, I prefer to hire people that have experience,
Mhm.
and I know that's not always possible. One thing I think about when I talk to people about hiring is, now our business now is all virtual. Oop,
Mhm.
sorry. Our business is all virtual. Nobody's in the same state even, and
Mhm.
so we have 7 team members. They're all in different states, 2 are in a different country. And
Mhm.
so, that really opens up your talent pool, right? When
Yes.
you're looking to hire. So I don't have to just find someone that can drive into the office every day. I can search across the whole country, frankly, across the world if I wanted to. So that makes it a lot easier to find those experienced people that I want and want to be able to hire. So
Mm.
definitely I prefer to hire for experience.
Mhm.
Um, I also I think the more that you have documented in systems,
Mhm.
and the easier that training is going to be, right?
Mhm.
So if I just sit someone down and I have to spend, a week going through, this is how we use this software and this is how we use that software, and or maybe it's not me, but anybody that has to sit down and teach them to do that, that's going to take a fair amount of time.
Mhm.
So the more that we can document, whether it's a piece of paper or it's a digital file or a video, I love videos with the screen shares and stuff so they can actually see us walking through things. The more we can document in that way, the much faster the training's gonna be, because 'cause I've already
Mhm.
got it all prepared, and the more self-directed it can be, right? If I
Mhm.
hire someone who's a self-starter and, wants to be successful here, they can go on and start all of that on their own. Now,
Mhm.
that's not to say it's gonna be a total hands-off training. I mean, I'm still gonna go in and help direct them and talk to them about certain areas and things. But the basics, they can get all done on their own. And
Yeah.
so I think that's a huge thing that we think about, and frankly, even if I'm not hiring, I still want to document all those systems, because there will be a day I anticipate when I am going to be hiring more.
Mhm.
And so we try to document as much as possible and build that in a way that, you know, that's going to be very easy for a new person to jump into.
Yeah.
So that makes a huge difference, I think.
Yeah. Cool. That's great. Yeah, I love hearing about how you approach it, how you think about it. That's really great. Okay, I would love to know, can you think of a time when in this business when you had a plan to go from A to B, and this could be like a project that's to completion, it could be a goal that you're trying to hit, but you had planned out how to get to A to B, and you thought like this is exactly how we're gonna do it, and you were wrong.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a I mean, I have a couple, but I'll share this one. So I I noticed pretty early on, and probably even before I started the business, frankly, that there was a real need for law firm owners to have like a dashboard, right? Like some type of something that was giving them key metrics that was going to help them to run their business. And so I didn't feel like there was a really good product out there. Like a lot of practice management software has their own built-in dashboards. Maybe your financial software has some dashboarding, which is great. But I felt like really combining the information from the two would give you like pretty much everything you needed to know about your business. So I was very, very excited to build something like that or find something like that. And so I didn't find anything. So I thought, that's fine. I'm just going to build it. Right. And so I started down that path and I started looking at, people to hire and what I wanted it to look like and all this kind of stuff and spent a fair amount of time and energy on it, and money as well. And it got to a point where I realized that as great of a product as I think this would be, and I still think it would be great, um, it was really starting to draw the focus away from my main business, right? And the consulting and training and stuff that we do at Streamline Legal. And so I got to a point where I thought, and it's not that the plan was bad. Like the plan to build it actually, I think is still very good. Um, but what I didn't anticipate was how that plan was going to fit in or affect the rest of my business. And
Mhm.
so, because I just thought of the end, I thought of I'll have this great product to offer my current clients and new clients, and won't it be a great benefit? And I still think it would be. But what I underestimated or didn't give enough attention to was how that process of building it and creating it was going to affect my current business or the current business
Mhm.
that we had going on. And
Mhm.
so I did make that decision probably 4 or so months into it that this isn't going to work. And
Mm.
I think it was really hard because I was super excited about it. Um but I did feel like, you know what, just cuz it's not working now doesn't mean it will never be a good idea, right? Like
Mm.
so I took a step back from that project and I was like, we're going to put this on hold, right? Like we can keep the stuff we already have and maybe we'll use it again in the future, but like we need to stop this, refocus on the main business, and when that gets to a point where it doesn't need as much attention from me, that's when I'll jump over and focus on this new idea.
Mm.
So like I said, it's not that the plan was bad necessarily, and I still have it around and I still would love to pick up on it someday when the timing is right. It's just that I didn't do a good job of evaluating how that was going to affect our current business. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, it's not like, Streamline Legal fell apart. It's just that it was not operating or running the way that I wanted it to while I was not focusing on it. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, clearly that's my fault for not having built the systems that I wanted or that was able to support my giving attention to something else.
Yeah.
So now we have a new renewed focus on, looking at our internal systems and how are those working or not working and finding the holes and plugging them and designing things so that in the future we can continue on projects like that.
Mm.
So I'm super excited about it still, but yeah, that I would say the timing really just made that project crash and burn for the moment.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. That's yeah. You had a couple, do you have another example in your mind too? Because that's such a good example. If you
um
don't, that's okay, but you mentioned you have a couple. I'm open to it if you wanna share.
yeah, um I would say, right, my biggest challenge right now that I'm struggling with or is really just um I like to market on social media. And so I'll do videos and I'll do posts and all kinds of stuff, and I really enjoy it. Like I enjoy making the videos and it's a lot of fun. But again, if I'm looking at where my time and attention is spent on the
Yeah.
business,
Mhm.
um I've been doing a very poor job as of late, like the last maybe 2 months, 3 months of being consistent with that social media. And so
Mm,
now it's like, when I think about it or when I get to it, then I put something up. But
mm,
I know from my own experience, that the more consistent that social media work is, the more it's going to pay off, right?
mhm.
And it's very cyclical. So like you can almost get away with it for a little while, right? And then it comes back in a, whatever your cycle is, whether it's monthly or yearly or whatever,
Mhm.
it comes back and pretty soon it catches up to you and it's like, wait, where are all those leads that I was getting before, right? Well,
Right,
you're not doing the
right,
social media anymore and so they're not, you're not top of mind. And
right.
so again, it for me it's a similar kind of challenge, right? And this is a continual
Yeah,
theme with me frankly, is that, how to divide or where to put my attention and time so that it's benefiting the business the most. And
yeah,
so, but again, that goes back to the hiring, right? Because
yeah.
I mean, uh, the probably the smartest thing for me to do right now is to outsource that, right? And hire someone to be able to do that for me. Because even
Mhm,
if their posting or their information is not going to be exactly what I would have put in, or it's not going to
mhm,
be, as much as I would have done, like
mhm.
it's going to be better than the inconsistent stuff that's going on now, you know?
Right,
Um,
right.
so so just another, it all comes full circle, right? Like
Yeah,
the things that are challenging you, um, the because I'm a firm believer that personal growth precedes professional growth.
yes,
And so I'm definitely think that as I grow, then so does the business. And
yeah,
so the things that are stopping the business are really just in my experience a reflection of what's going on with me, right? So
yeah,
if I'm inconsistent, then the business is going to be inconsistent. Or
yes,
if I'm, slow to make changes, then the business is going to be slower than I want it to be as well.
yeah,
So those are the kind of things that I try, and it's not always easy to recognize or to see,
no,
and like I said, I mean, I had my law firm for like 12 or 13 years. This has been going on for about 3 years now. So I mean, like I still have these challenges, but
yeah,
to be able to definitely being able to recognize them makes it a lot easier to deal with them, that's for sure.
that's so true. I don't know if I totally agree with what you're saying about personal growth precedes professional growth. There's a woman that I think is great. Her name is Chris Plackey. Have you ever heard of her?
No.
Okay, she focuses on women and who, like, run a team, basically,
Mhm.
and, she just rebranded her podcast, but her podcast used to say in the beginning, "The best way to grow a business is to grow the person who's running it," and I was like,
I
"Oh,
agree.
it's so good." Yeah, and
I
that's
agree.
it just made me think of that when you were mentioning what you're
And
mentioning. It
I
Yeah.
think back on, like, the type of person that I was when I started my law firm, and, like, there are things now that I think about that never would occurred to me back then, but there's also things that I thought about back then that I'm like, why did I let that stress me out so much? Like, I
Mhm.
mean, don't get me wrong, I still get stressed by stuff, but it's not the same stuff, right? Like
Right.
you just at a certain point you're able to look back and see that growth and see those changes and it's exciting. It's great cuz the thing I like about it the most is that it makes me very hopeful for the future, right? Like
Mm,
if I could grow this much in, 15 years,
right.
like how much am I growing the next 15 years? Like
Right.
that I think is pretty cool. But if you don't, it takes some time to be able to see that and recognize it um before you're able to get that kind of a benefit of the future. So,
Yeah, yeah, I 100% agree. Um, are there any thinking of, like, personal development especially,
mhm.
but this could also go with professional development. Are there any philosophies or principles that you just hold tight? Like, it's just how you roll, it's a part of what you do, and maybe it's top of mind for you consistently. Does anything stand out when I ask that?
So I have people tell me a lot that I have a very, I don't know what the word, but like down to earth, even keel kind of personality.
Uh-huh.
And which I think has served me well or helped in a lot of ways. But I also think that I remember making a definitive decision about how I think about things that I worry about.
Mm,
And it was I mean, I don't remember the exact date, but like sometime around high school kind of time frame, maybe early college. I had this thought where I was like, there's so many things that I could and often do worry about that I can't control, that I
Mhm.
can't do anything about, or I can only do a limited amount of things about. And so I I started looking at things like, okay, here's something I'm worried about. What can I do about it? Right? And if there's something I can do about it, great. I either make the decision to do it or make the decision not to do it. But I'm not going to spend all that extra time worrying about it because, as I tell my son now, like, worrying about it just makes you suffer twice, right? Like, first you suffer through the worrying about it, and then you suffer through whatever the thing is, if in fact it turns out to be bad. But um, you know, we there's just I feel like a lot of times we worry or stress ourselves out about things that we can't we can't make a difference in. And so we just need to think more about how we can respond to them as opposed to, because that we can control, right? Like if something goes bad in my business, the pandemic, for example, that's an awesome example, right? Like a pandemic happens. I really can't stop the pandemic. I mean, I can do my part and I can get other people to do their parts, but I really cannot stop a global pandemic. And so recognizing that, it's like how much am I going to worry about the pandemic? Well, I'm going to try not to worry about it too much. I worry about my own health and things like that. But as far as my business goes, I try to focus on things that I can control. Like, okay, well, I can control doing more marketing, or I can control doing different types of marketing, or I can control, so there are things that I can control, but that's all how I'm responding to the pandemic, right? It's not the pandemic itself. And so I feel like if I spend the time and energy focusing on the things I can control or how I'm going to respond to the thing that happened, that's going to put me in a much better position than if I was just all consumed with this worry about this global pandemic. And don't get me wrong, I don't mean to imply that I've got this all figured out. Like I still worry about things, but it's
Yeah.
definitely not to the degree that I used to.
Yeah.
When I made that decision that I was going to only focus on what I could control or how I was going to respond to things and not worry about things I can't control,
Yeah.
that really freed me up. Like it gave me a lot more energy, frankly,
Yeah.
that I didn't have before. And so that made a big difference for me.
That is, I love the way that you talk about it is so well articulated. There's a when private clients have their first retreat with us, there's a page in the workbook that we just cover some things that we all need to like remember for
Mhm,
foundational purposes, and that's one of them. It's like a diagram that I've learned somewhere along the line about. There's a bubble, and like inside the bubble, the things you can control, which is very
mhm,
little, like your
mhm,
attitude, your perspective, your schedule. There's things that you can control, but then outside of it, there's all these things you can't control. And so we call it staying in your bubble. But the people, one time I heard a CEO, and I thought it was so cold when I first heard it, but he was talking about this, and he said, "You get what you deserve. If you're going to worry about things outside of your control, you are not going to be creating the results that you could be creating. You're getting what
mhm,
you deserve. If you do stay focused on where you do have control, you're able to focus on the next best step, and you're able
mhm,
to create the results you want to create, and you win because of
mhm.
that. Like there's a payoff for that." And so he
Yeah.
was talking about how you get what you deserve with that one thing. Are you thinking about things you can't control, or are you thinking about things that you can
And
control?
and at the beginning, like when you first start thinking about that, it's really hard to figure out what's in the bubble and what's not,
Mm,
because you have this perception almost that, well, isn't a lot of stuff's in the bubble, right? Like
there's
that's what you
not.
think
Yeah.
initially. And then like you said, in reality, the bubble's really small. Like I
Mhm.
wouldn't even put my kids in that bubble, frankly, because
Right.
they're now old enough, they have minds of their own and thoughts of their own, and they're doing things on their own. And as much as I think I can control some of that or try to control some of that, that's not necessarily true. So
Yeah.
it definitely is harder at the beginning, gets easier with time. But
Mhm.
even to this day, there are things where I'm like, wait a minute,
Mhm.
is that really in my control or not? And so,
Right.
there's still things that I find are kind of on the edge. But yeah, the easier it is to identify those things, then you can make those decisions a little bit easier.
Yeah, yeah. Because at the core, it's even the things that are on the edge. If w I love this concept, just thinking about it, because you do have control over your attitude, your
Mhm,
perspective, your actions,
mhm,
and so knowing that, even the things that are on the fringe, you're like, do I have control? You do have control how you react to those things.
Oh
Like you
yeah.
do like, and if you do that in a way that you're proud of, like there's integrity with like how you're
Mhm.
doing it, even though that takes guts, I think sometimes to
Oh
do that,
yeah.
then you are exercising control where you have it. Where, if you don't there's something you think you should do, but you don't really have the guts to do it, then it's out of integrity, really.
It is.
And then you're not exercising control. And so then the worry keeps spinning because you're not actually doing or showing up how you could show up.
Right. Right.
It's sort of vague how we're talking about, but I think it's such a great thing to keep in mind. And I think law firm owners have so much of this that as a business owner, but I would argue that maybe more than many business owners, different types of business owners,
Mhm.
there's so many things that are constantly spinning at one time.
Mhm.
Clients, their matters, your team, what, like you name it, right? And
Right.
figuring out how to stay focused on where you have control can be very simplifying to how you operate. And otherwise, it just feels like you're a hot mess trying to do everything, trying to control everything, and
Oh
that's it.
yeah.
And
And
yeah,
where I see that a lot is, I see a lot of attorneys that think that or feel like they can or should be able to control their clients.
yeah.
And I'm like, that's gonna kill you every time
Mhm.
because you can't. You cannot control what they're gonna do, say, act. You can't control any of
And
that.
if you can't control your freaking kid, you can't control a client.
No, forget that.
Yeah, like it's
So now I
it's
don't wanna
no
give you the
other.
impression that my kids are, like, way crazy and out of control. But
No, but
it's
no,
true
but
that
like anyone, if there's somebody else's name is in your bubble, it needs to
right.
get like you can't control another human.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's I see that all the time, and I try to impart upon law firm owners in particular that, you know, your clients made a ton of decisions before they got to you that got them to this point, right? And maybe they were good decisions, maybe they were bad decisions. Like, we're not here to pass judgment necessarily, but the idea is that you didn't cause, and I mean, maybe on a rare occasion, but most of the time you did not cause their situation that brought them to you, you know?
Mhm.
And so you're doing, most cases, the best you can to be able to help them get out of that situation they don't want to be in anymore,
Mhm.
right? But you're, you know, you can't control the decisions that they made in the past or the decisions that they're going to make in the future.
Mhm.
The best you can do, like we talked about before, is how are you going to respond to it, right? Are you
Right.
going to continue to represent them? Are you not going to continue to represent them? Are you going to, you know, give them other solutions? Are there alternatives? You know,
Mhm.
so there's all kinds of ways that we can react as law firm owners to our clients.
Mhm.
But we if you have the perception that you're able to control them or should be able to control them, that's a big one too. You know, that's exhausting, thinking that, oh,
So
why is
exhausting.
my client so crazy, I should be able to convince them, or I should be able to do this, that, or the other. No, you shouldn't. Like,
Right.
it's not possible.
Right.
So I feel like, the sooner that you come to terms with the idea that you can't control your clients, you can control how you respond to them and make those decisions. Are we going to tolerate this in our business? Are we going to tolerate this from our clients? Figure that out on the front end so that when you're approached by a client like that, you don't have this like internal struggle with what to do. You already
Mhm.
decided at the onset, this is the situation, this is how we feel about it, and this person applies to this, so we're not going to, you know, we're going to follow the procedure that we put in place prior to this.
Mhm.
So being able to think about that on the front end, how will you respond to clients that might behave in different ways,
Mhm.
I think can be very, very useful.
Yeah, that's so good. Have you ever heard of an author named Byron Katie? That
No,
sounds familiar?
I gotta
Okay.
write all these people down.
Let's
Jeez.
see. Well, she wrote a book called Loving What Is. And so in there, like at the very beginning, she opens up the book with there's three kinds of business. There's your business, there's my business, and there's God's business. That's the way she frames it. And she says, your business is you, the decisions that you make, like your bubble, right? The
Right.
things in your bubble. My business is me, the decisions I make, the actions I take, my attitude, my perspective. God's business is like floods, war, when you're going to die, all that stuff. And so she basically talks about we live so much of our lives in someone else's business. And if we would just bring it back to our own business, there'd be so much more peace and clarity. And this is exactly
Mhm.
what you're saying about take control over where you have control instead of trying to mentally argue with someone else's business. Like,
Yeah.
it, and or God's business, right? Like
Right.
floods, pandemics, things like that.
Hmm.
So it also makes me think of that, just that separation of like, oh, okay, there's two other kinds of business that I probably insert myself into mentally, kind of arguing with it or struggling with it. And how the hardest part probably I would imagine for me it is, and I wonder what you would say is when you realize, because it's an awareness, when you realize like, oh, do I have control over this thing? Like, what am I
Hmm.
doing? I'm mentally stressing out about something I literally have no control over. And that is, I think the hardest part is to drop, like mentally drop that and refocus because it's
Oh
almost
yeah.
like a hook, you get stuck in about X, Y, or Z, and it's not in your bubble, so to speak. And to be able to set that down and refocus, you have to have awareness to be able to do it. But even doing that is hard, even if you do have the awareness. I don't
Absolutely. And one of the things I think, or one of the places I think that that's the hardest is when we're talking about like good or close friends
Mhm.
or family members where it's like, you first of all, it's hard to recognize that it's their business, right?
Right.
But even once you do recognize it, like it just even if you recognize that, hey, this is not a good situation, or this is not serving me, or this is not, whatever the situation is, even once you recognize it, it's really hard to either, cut that off, or, however you're going to deal with, however you're going to respond to it, right?
Mhm.
It even when you know what you want your response to be or should be or whatever, actually carrying out that response can be super hard.
And
Um,
genuinely carrying it out, right? Like, I could
oh
think of
yeah.
times where I know I shouldn't have an opinion or I know I shouldn't have it, so then that's when your face doesn't match your body language
Yeah.
or your words don't match your body language, where you're trying to do the right thing and really you're just a balled up tins of yarn, like
Exactly, exactly. Because yeah, I mean, if we could really like draw it all out and just be like, okay, this is not my business. This is like, if it was really that easy, we wouldn't have as much to talk about. But the
Mhm.
reality is that even once you do recognize it, it's still super hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, recognizing it does definitely put you on the path to making it a little bit easier.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Part of, this weirdly ties back into business for owners in that there are things you do have control over where you start to spin and you trying to control all these people and or sometimes I think when that heightens is when there is a sense of chaos in the business that you
Mhm.
it doesn't feel like you can keep the wheels on anymore. Like the wheels are coming off and taking control is actually exercising and using a company like yours or and others to help sort of create a sense of organization inside the business that allows the a proper sense of control. Like that is where you can exercise control and it
Yeah,
can
yeah.
help everything just run more smoothly instead of focusing on putting out fires and then trying to control reactions of other people and trying to just like get to the root cause of something
Mhm.
and why that chaos is happening, which is something that your business really helps people with. So, yeah, I don't know. You probably see this play out all the time with the work that you have and help people implement.
I do, and I've been there, right? Like one of the things that I distinctly remember from my law firm experience when I was running my firm was when we made the switch from being reactive to proactive.
Mhm.
And I use the word switch because it was a big change, but it wasn't like a light switch. Like it wasn't like just one day we were proactive, the day before we're reactive, now we're proactive. But it was more a gradual thing, but definitely making that switch had a huge impact on not just the business but our clients as well, because
Mhm.
when you are able to become more proactive, you're able to anticipate your clients needs. You don't have as many people calling with fires because you've prepared them for what could have turned into a fire and prevented the fires.
Mhm.
And so, but I think when you're in that reactive state, it is so hard. Like I remember thinking, how can we even turn this around? Like I don't
Mhm.
even know how to do it. um
Mhm.
and so having that experience of feeling like it was out of control and I didn't know how to bring it back into control, or how to make it more proactive. I felt like we were always chasing people and chasing them for information, chasing them for solving a problem, chasing them for money, like it was
Mhm.
exhausting. So when I did figure out how to make that switch, I thought, this is huge. Like, this can be huge for so many business owners. I mean,
Mhm.
especially lawyers, but even just in general, business owners, that I felt like that was something that needed to be put out there, like,
Mhm.
because I met other attorneys. I did real estate closings. I was talking to other attorneys all the time. And it was like, well, how do you do this? And how do you do that in your business? And we would share stories sitting around a closing table while we're waiting for money. And we're just sitting there talking about it. And I thought, if other attorneys were able to make the switch that I had been able to make, it would just change so much, not just about their business, but about their lives as well. At least it did for me. It was a
Mhm.
totally different experience. And so, um, yeah, basically the idea that we do have control even when we feel like it's out of control. It all has to do with the decisions that we make, right? So
Yes.
if we can make decisions that will put us more into control instead of exacerbating or continuing on with this out of controlness, if you will,
Mhm.
um then it is possible to make the switch. But it's
Mhm.
not easy. You have
Mhm.
to have a definite, like, I am going to do that. You have to make a definite decision and do the work, frankly, that's involved in making that switch. Because otherwise, it's just not going to happen. And you're going to
Right.
continue with the same, feeling like you're putting out fires all the time. You're going to feel like a firefighter for your whole career. And,
Right.
and unfortunately, I've heard of attorneys that have had that
Mhm.
scenario. And it's heartbreaking to me. I think it's terrible. Like, no wonder we as a profession have such issues with, substance abuse and
Mhm.
depression and all that kind of stuff, all these mental challenges that I feel like this sense of control could really help with. I'm
Mhm.
not claiming that, having an organization in your business is going to solve all of that, but I do think that it exacerbates it. And I
Yeah.
do think that the more like you feel like you're in control and in reality you are in control, then that makes a huge difference, not only on the business, but your own mental well being as well.
Yes, definitely. Just peace of mind that, like, you
Absolutely.
don't have to keep it all up in here because you've gotten some things organized and
Hmm.
to be able to handle it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's very, very true. And it does
We we
it
actually we actually have an email address at our office called peaceofmind@streamlined.legal.
oh,
So if you're
wow.
looking for peace of mind, feel free to email us. But
That's
it's
so
that
great.
that's exactly what I was thinking when I created that. It was like,
Mhm.
I want to make sure that people understand that we're not just doing this because, it looks good on software, it looks good to, investors or whatever. Those are great things,
Mhm.
but I want to make sure we're doing this so that the owner or the people that are, running this firm, have a certain peace of mind and are not only able to build a business, but enjoy building the business.
Mhm.
Like, if you're so miserable, running this law firm, then that's not going to be good for anyone, frankly.
Right. Yeah. I do think it helps too to have, someone like you, and I think someone like me, and there's others in the industry that you don't have to feel alone trying to tackle things. Like,
Right.
you are practicing law a lot. And so not most of the people I deal with, there's a small percentage of people I deal with that they have a full-time job actually practicing law, and they have a full-time job lifting the firm off the ground. So it's like two
Hmm.
full-time jobs. And as they
Right.
grow, that becomes less and less of like an actually two full-time jobs because they get help and things like that. But that is even if you are, 0.75% of the time on the business and point 0.5 on the business, that's more than a full-time job, right?
Right.
And that it's hard to figure out how you're gonna get your hands around certain things that you can and you should, but you're busy. And so
Hmm.
how do you and I think using someone to help get some things in line is just so, it's important. It feels like important work. Yes, the tactics and the things that we're providing and the logistical things that we're providing are important, but there's something sort of higher level than that, which is the importance of the connection between a human out in the world that has a law firm and the business that you run, that many people run, that connect to humans to be able to create a solution that helps get peace of mind. Because I do think so many people try to do it on their own for too long. And it's
Yeah.
almost like you said earlier, your quickest lesson, like the lesson that you knew off the top of your head the second time around is you hire faster. I
Mhm.
think that it's similar. If you can grok this, when you lift a firm off of the ground, or any business for that matter, don't don't do it at the cost of you. Like, get help so that you aren't doing it at the cost of you. And that's a little bit of a leap for some people to make, but when you do it, things start just clicking, right? So
Yeah, I don't think it's a little bit of a leap. I think it's a big leap for a lot of people. Like,
yeah,
I
no, that's true.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that, I think some of it kind of goes towards the profession as well. When we talk
Mhm.
about being licensed as an attorney and like, having paralegals or legal assistants or whoever helping you with work, it's still your license on the line. And so I feel like that kind of
Mhm.
idea really makes it harder for people to conceptualize the idea of letting go of things, right? So,
Mhm. They
like,
carry
if
the
it's my
burden.
license on the line, it's really hard for me to feel comfortable saying, "Oh, I'm gonna let this person do it," right?
Right.
Now, the trick though is there's a difference between, abdicating and, delegating, right?
Yeah.
So, abdicating is like, "I'm gonna let that person do it. I hope it turns out well. I don't know,"
Right.
that kind of thing. Um, whereas delegating is like, "Okay, I'm gonna let that person do it. I'm gonna review it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
train well, first I'm gonna train them so they know how to do it the way I'm expecting it. Then I'm gonna review it, and then, we're gonna finalize it or whatever." But the idea that, that we can't let things go, that's where I think we get into a lot of trouble.
Mhm.
And, if for whatever reason you're not willing to or not able to let go of some stuff, then it's going to make your life so much harder.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that a lot of attorneys struggle with. And that's something that makes it much harder for them to feel like, put the financial concerns aside. Like, let's say I have enough money to hire someone, but I mean, maybe this I see too. People will hire someone, but then they still have trouble letting go of
Mhm.
things and responsibilities. And so that person's sitting there like, well, I could really help them a lot more if they would just share this document with me, or if they would just show me how to do this, or if they would just, that kind of thing. So I think that there's a lot of factors, obviously, but one of those is just the idea that if you're not able for whatever reason to let go of some of this stuff, or most of the stuff, frankly,
Mhm.
then your goals of growing a business are not very realistic, frankly.
Yeah.
Because like I said at the beginning, you're one person with a certain finite amount of time, finite energy, finite money. Like, you have to figure out a way to um leverage other things, or else you're never going to be able to expand to whatever your growth goals are. So I
Right.
think it all comes back to, it's all related. But
Yeah.
I see people, especially law firm owners, struggle with letting go of things a lot, and that's
Yeah.
a tough one. Yeah.
It is tough. I have some clients that have been with me since close to the beginning. They talk a lot about collaboration, like communication and collaboration. Communication in collaboration was the exact way that they were talking about it, is so helpful because
Mhm.
otherwise it's just all in your brain.
Oh yeah.
And having partners that you can like get some movement and traction on is helpful, even if there's trepidation, even if
Mhm.
there's, but having a lot of communication and collaborating on an effort can be helpful in, I think, releasing some of the little things. Instead of, I think sometimes we hire someone and it's like all on us to give them everything that they need instead of kind of approaching it from a collaborative perspective. And I think
Yeah.
that way that they talk about it is helpful to think about how to get momentum more quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times when whether it's, someone we hired as a consultant or outsourced person, or an internal person, when we're letting go of that stuff, it's it's hard because it feels initially, especially, like it's more work, right? Well, now I have to
Mhm.
train the person, or now I have to deliver all this information to the person, or whatever, right? And in reality, sometimes it is, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
But if you're just looking at the initial part of the relationship, you're not taking into account the idea that this is a long-term thing, right?
This
Like,
is a
I mean,
multiplier. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like yes, put in the, 15, 20 minutes, hours, whatever it is of work now, and it's going to save you 10 times in the next over the next 6 months, or whatever.
Mhm.
I have a great like on point example for that. When I had my law firm, I knew that there was software out there that did document automation. I frankly even had some of the software that I had never used. And so I finally got to a point where I was like, every time I would, prepare, I did closings for real estate. So I'd prepare a deed or whatever document for transfer. And every time I would do it, I would think, ooh, I should use that software. But of course, I hadn't set it up or anything. Right. And so, and every time, and now finally it's like the 10th time. And I'm like, I really should still use that software that I'm paying for, by the way, right?
Yeah.
And so I get to that place, and then one day I just made a decision. I was like, you know what? Forget it. The time I would have spent preparing that document, I'm going to instead spend setting up the software. And yes, it's going to take me a little more time, right?
Mhm.
But I'm going to do that instead, spend a little extra time doing that. And now for the next however long, I'm going to get benefit from this template that I'm building, right? So I did that, and I I did it with one document and it felt so good that now I was like addicted, right? Now I'm like, "Ooh, what else can I put in here?" right? And so I made a decision, and really it was an internal decision. I'm like, I'm never drafting another document again unless I'm making it a template, right? So
Mhm.
I will draft a template, but I'm not drafting a letter or I'm not drafting a deed or whatever, so it came up on my list that I needed to create this letter, and I was like, nope, not doing it. I'm making a template for a letter. I'm not
Yeah.
writing the letter. Because once
Yeah.
I had the template, it took about 4 seconds to write the actual letter, right?
Right.
So that's those kind of things where if I had continued that thinking all along, I would have been, 13 years into a law firm that never did an automated document.
Mhm.
Whereas if I bite the bullet up front and I do the extra work up front, now the time that it saved me over the course. I mean, I had closing documents that would take me 45 minutes to prepare every time. No, like I would time myself 45 minutes every time. I put it in the software, it was like maximum 10 minutes.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's 3,500, I mean, sorry, 35 minutes per closing that I was saving. I mean, if that's just for one set of documents, if you multiply that across the whole office, it's things like
Mhm.
that where you have to flip your mindset about it, or else you're just going to be stuck in that situation for a very long time.
I love cold hard decisions. Like, I think it's the fastest way to make progress is if you just make a freaking decision. And for you,
And
that was one where it's like, I'm never drafting a document again. I will draft it. I will do the template, but I won't. That's a
yeah,
good
and
cold decision.
people
Yeah,
freak
hard
out because
decision.
they're like, how can you make a decision like that, or how can you make a decision so fast? And like, you know what, if it doesn't work, like, I mean, I could have been the worst template builder and whatever, the whole thing could have failed. Like, at least I'll know, right? And I can make
Mhm.
another decision. Most of the decisions we make are not going to drive your business into the ground within
Mhm.
the next week.
Mhm.
You have some time to see how that decision plays out and learn from it, hopefully.
Mhm.
But if you're watching and tracking that kind of stuff and looking at your decisions, how did it play out?
Mhm.
You can always go back and make the other decision later, right? Like, it's not
Mhm.
like I made it now and there's no chance for me to turn around, right?
Right.
No, I decided I was going to code my own templates. Was that the right decision? I don't know. Like, it worked for me, but 6 months into it, I could have decided, you know what, this is stupid. I should hire someone else. It'll go a lot faster, right?
Yes.
That doesn't mean
Yes.
I can never hire someone. Like, so I just think that people kind of a lot of times people will put this finality to decisions, which isn't necessarily even there, right? Like,
Mm-mm.
I can
Yeah.
make the decision, I can play it out for a few months, I can go back and make the other decision, play it out for a few months, and still change things around. It's
What's crazy about what you just said is that they are not also giving equal airtime mentally to the finality of not making a decision. That is
oh
so
yeah,
crazy. Like, it's
I
almost
agree.
like there's the fear just keeps them focused on, like, what if it doesn't work? The finality of, like, maybe it doesn't
Mhm.
go with it as they want it to. What if for all the negative reasons. And then but there's never any airtime given to, unless it seems like when your back is against a wall, then sometimes it's like, boom, you just have this
Right.
moment where you're like, no more. I'm not doing this anymore. But
But
up
most of the
until
time
then,
it's not, right? Like,
yeah,
most of the time it's a, "Hey, I could continue to just put off this decision and not have to think about it." And then we think, "Well, it feels good." Like, I don't get me wrong, I still have this on occasion where it's like, "Okay, well, let me think about that later. Let me think about that later," right?
yeah,
And I think that I'm putting the decision off, but in reality,
you're
I'm
making a
making it a
decision.
decision by not making a decision, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a really hard thing to recognize as well,
Yeah,
because if it like I said, oftentimes feels better to just say, "Oh, I'm gonna worry about that later. I'm gonna think about that later. I'll
right.
make a decision later." But the reality is by doing that, you're already making a decision.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's
And
hard
there's a
to
finality there that's like, if you wanna like, if you think there might be a finality here, well, look at what the finality that you're creating
right.
by putting it off,
Yeah.
which is making a decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so, so good. Yeah. I hope people are hearing this. We all need this, right? Like,
We
it's a
do.
good refresher reminder for us and for all the listeners. Like, it pains me when I see people put decisions off. Like, why? Just
Mhm.
make a call and go all in with whatever you decide. It doesn't matter for like if it's, a yes to an offer that's been made to you or a no, but like
Mhm.
have your own back. Make a call and just move on instead of having all these like this unfinished business off to the side.
Yeah,
That's
it
it,
and
yeah.
and I think it's hard sometimes to realize too that once you make that decision, like there is a sense of relief that comes along with that, right? And frankly, whether it was the right or wrong decision, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm committing to this for maybe it's not even the rest of my life, maybe it's just a period of time,
Mhm.
I'm committing to this for 3 months and then I'll make the decision again.
Yep.
And guess what? If it was a good decision the first time around, I'm probably going to continue making that same decision, right?
Yes.
But if it was a bad decision, we see in 3 months that this was bad, then we should probably change and make the other decision. The
Yes.
the other the I one of the reasons I think it's so hard for people though is because we don't always measure the results of our decisions, right?
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
make the decision, but then we don't always it's like a big relief, we don't wanna think about it anymore, and then we don't measure the result, and then
Mhm.
we get to a point where we're like, "Well, wait, should we have made that decision, or was it the right decision, or was it the wrong decision?" Well, if you're not measuring, you probably don't know, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's hard too. That's hard to go back and say, "Oh, if only we had measured that, then we
Uh-huh.
might be able to make another decision." But guess what? A lot of times you can still go back and measure it. So
Yes.
even if you're not currently measuring it, don't think that we can never measure it. It's gonna take a little more time and effort to go back and measure it.
Right.
Um but yeah, without that measurement, like our brain plays tricks on us, right? Like
It's
we sometimes
yeah.
we think that it was a good decision, but then we look at the hard numbers and we're like, "Oh, wait, that wasn't as good a decision as I thought it was."
Yes. Facts, not
Um,
feelings. It's good.
mhm.
Yeah. And I think, this makes me think of th the idea or the mindset of experimenting, right? So making a decision, it's an experiment that you're running. It's not a forever you're not married to your
Yeah,
decisions. It is just
yeah.
like you're saying yes, and I think having an experimental mindset keeps it a little lighter, a little more agile, like you're going for
Mhm.
something and you measure. Like you don't do an experiment if you don't track like how it's going, right?
Right.
So there is this experimental mind play that you can bring to the decisions you're making, and then it lifts the seriousness off of some of them that
Another thing I like to think about too is like, what's the worst thing that's gonna happen? Like if
yeah,
I make this decision, right?
like
And
actually play out worst case scenario.
yeah, and when I do that, sometimes I realize that, okay, well, the worst isn't really that bad.
Right.
Like I can deal with the worst. So, but for some reason, if I don't frame it in those thoughts, it's like kind of like this cloud comes over me to say, oh, this could go wrong. And I'm like, okay, but what is wrong really? And
Right. It's like the man behind the curtain.
once I start thinking in those terms, it's like, oh, okay, well, that's not so bad. Let's try it.
Right.
But
Yes.
yeah, that's a hard
Yes.
one too.
So,
We're
so
talking about
good.
hard things here today, Melissa.
I know, but isn't it so fun? And here's what I tell people a lot, like law firm owners I work with. There's times where it's so easy to start taking ourselves so seriously with the decisions that we're making and the goals that we may be crushing or may not quite be reaching yet, or it's easy to get heavy about it all.
Mhm.
And I think what a privilege it is to be able to do what we're doing And there are moments that if you can just see it for a second, isn't this fun? Like, it's a lot more fun than going to work for someone else who is doesn't have the same mindset as you, doesn't think the same way as you. I'm not saying that working for other people has to suck, but there's a reason that you start your own thing, right?
Yeah.
And you're in it. And this is like, sure, it's not a cakewalk, but like, how can we just like lighten up a little bit? Because I think we move faster when we're lighter, and the approach of it's just
Yeah.
interesting how
And
easy it is to get really heavy about the growth that's happening or not happening or whatever. I don't know.
I'll tell you one of the things that helped me with that, because I mean, I still struggle with it, but a number of years ago, I was just not very good at like celebrating the good
Mhm.
things,
Mhm.
because I was building this business and, yeah, there were things that didn't always work out, but there were also a lot of great things that happened, right? But I wasn't very good at focusing on those. So my mind would
Mhm.
automatically go to the problems, right? Like,
Mhm.
what's the problem with the business? That's what we talked about earlier today. Like what's your biggest challenge, right? Like
Mhm.
those are the things that my brain and a lot of other people's brains tend to focus on, right?
Mhm.
And so then I had heard people like business coaches and all kinds of people talk for years about, you have to have gratitude, you have to have gratitude. And I was like, what? Like
I
I
know.
didn't
Yeah.
exactly understand the concept, frankly. And so the more I spent some time trying to figure this out, what do we do? Um, but it's so true that the more I started forcing myself to focus on the things that were good, the things
Mhm.
that were going well, the things that were working, the more that energy kind of propelled me into dealing with the things that weren't working as well, right?
Mhm.
But that was a really hard thing for me to change.
Mm.
And like I said, I still struggle with it. But one of the things that I've found that really helped is I got an app on my phone, and
Mhm.
there's an app for everything these days,
Yes.
and this app, like, it, I'll tell you the name of the app is, Grateful, I think.
Okay.
And, it's like $5 or something, but, like, it basically will alert me every day. It'll say, "Hey, don't forget, it's time to write down something that you're thankful
Mm.
for, or something that you enjoy, or something." Like, so it basically took the work out of,
Mhm.
me having to develop this practice of gratitude. So it
Mhm.
reminds me, it prompts me with sentences, it
Mhm.
encourages me to upload photos, which of
Mm.
course now in my mind I think, "Ooh, I got to go take a photo of something today," that I'm thankful for because I have to put that on my app, right?
That's
So
cool.
it took the what I felt was the onerous of, "Oh, I have to remember to sit down and I have to remember to think
Mhm.
of something to write about and I have to do all this kind of stuff." It took all of that stuff out of it for me, and it turned it into like a game. It gamified it, right? And so now it's like that the phone beeps, I pick it up and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I noticed today this cool thing I took a picture of," and I write a few sentences about it. It doesn't have to be like this whole like big journal that I'm writing like all my deep thoughts in, right? It's more the for me anyway, it's more that it's it's been brought to my attention. It's in my, sphere of influence that I'm thinking about these things. And doing that on a consistent basis has really, really been helpful. So I think that you're absolutely right. The more we focus on the problems and the more we focus on the challenges, the harder it is for us to think about and remember the whole reason we're here in the first place, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, it's cool that I get to pick who I work with, right?
Mm.
I'm the one making the hiring decisions. I get to pick
Yeah.
people. It's cool that I can, leave work for 2 hours during the day to go see my kids play, at school or
Mhm.
whatever. So it just the things that I really appreciate about it, I do have to like put those front and center somewhere in an app that dings or, next to my desk or something so that I remember those things, because it's so easy to not think about them on a daily basis and just really get pounded down by the things that are not working or the challenges that we have.
Yeah. I love that. I had a similar to you. I'm a pretty positive person, but when it comes to my business, people would say, just so funny. I used to teach it because I had to teach it for the consulting firm I worked for. And then when I had my own business doing it, I was like, wait, what?
Oh, yeah.
Was about you should celebrate your wins. And, and then when it came time to celebrate my wins, even though I'm a pretty positive person, like your head's down, right? You're just
Oh,
like
yeah.
going, going, going. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like blow up. like, how do you celebrate your win? Like, what does that look like? I had to figure that out,
And
and
in my mind, when I think of celebration, like, I thought it had to be like a party. Like, "Oh,
yes,
we have to have a party every night,"
yes,
or, "We have to go
exactly,
out to dinner
confetti.
every time," like, but
It
in the
doesn't it's not
reality,
that.
it doesn't have to be that
No.
big, you know?
I was talking to a mentor of mine that, she we were talking about this, and she was like, "Why are" and I really look up to this woman. And she was like, "Why are you in such a hurry?" Because we were talking about goals and what's happening, and there's a little bit of, like, stress about it, and, like, I gotta get there. And she's like, "Why are you in such a hurry?" I was like, "I'm not in a hurry." She's like, "Yes, you are. Like, you think there's something about you that you think there is better than here, and you're wrong." Because she's, like, exponential like, hugely grown her business, and she's like, "You're wrong." And you kinda listen when someone who has been there, done that is saying to you, "You're not right. You're like, it's not better there than here. Right here is where it's at, sister." And so,
Mhm,
like, get right about that. And that clicked for me in a way where it was like, "Oh, I don't have to celebrate, but I need to genuinely appreciate, like, acknowledge and appreciate right where I am right now." It's yes to
mhm.
all of it. Like, all the stuff that's hard, all the wins that are being made, like, it's really having an appreciation for where you are, and if you really have an appreciation for where you are, you're not in a hurry to get somewhere else. It's just kind of and for me, for some reason, there still is things that we celebrate, like if it's big milestones or
Oh, sure.
whatever. But now it's settled in where it's not celebration in the way that I've always thought about it before, but for me anyway, it is just pausing to say this, like, "Yes, yes to this." Like,
Mhm.
"This is so awesome," and then, keep moving. But I don't know, that shifted things for me with the whole celebration thing.
It did, and it continue like, that's still something that I work on to this day, like,
Yeah.
how do I recognize it, and how do I,
Yes.
keep it in perspective, essentially?
Yes, so true. Okay, well, another question that's down for me to ask people because we did talk about challenges. What is something that's just so the most awesome thing, the thing that you're most excited about now within work?
Honestly, I'm excited about my team. Like,
Yeah.
I love the people I work with. Like, and
Yeah.
I can't say that I've always felt that way.
Uh-huh.
Whether it was my business or somebody else's business. And I just really think it's awesome. And to a certain extent, it makes me nervous bringing in new people because I'm like, wait, what if I pick wrong or what if they don't
Right.
fit or whatever, right? And but then I have to go back to the same things we were talking about, where it's
Yeah.
like this is not a forever decision. I had a business coach once that talked about, this person doesn't have to be on your bus for the entire ride, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe they get on at one stop and they get off at the next stop, or whatever.
Right.
And obviously people decisions can be really hard. I mean, I don't want to hire someone and fire them the next week, but at the same time, it's like this is not a forever decision. This is what's going to help us grow the business today,
Mm.
and how long is that going to work out, and at a certain point I may need different people or additional people or whatever to be able to build the business. But I'm super excited about the idea that we could find more people like the
Mhm.
people I already have, and wouldn't that be an even more awesome team? And so yeah,
Right.
I'm really really excited about the people that we have right now, and the prospect of just continuing that growth, and building a culture, frankly, that supports that and attracts that, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's very exciting to me. And I never really got to the point with my law firm where I felt like I was building a culture. I mean, I may have been a little bit by default, but it was not at all intentional. And so
Mhm.
being able to have that experience with this business is super exciting to me.
Mhm. That is one thing I was thinking earlier when talking about what you can control and what you can't control. In my head, as an owner, culture. You
Mhm.
do have control of that. Like, you set the tone, right?
Yep.
And you get to decide who's if someone is poisoning your culture, you have the call to
Yeah.
make.
Right.
Yeah, so that's cool to think about.
And again, not that it's an easy call, but
Mm-mm.
a lot of times for me, it comes down to, okay, how much am I willing to tolerate as far as, lost revenue or lost, time or whatever, by having this person that isn't fitting in our culture.
Mhm.
And here's the thing, chances are if it's not working out for you, there's probably a good chance that it's not working out for them either. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like they don't necessarily always feel like they have um the power or ability to speak up about it.
Yeah.
But I find that a lot of times if it's not working on your end, there's a good chance it's not working great on their end either.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yes. Do What would you say, like, as we start to wind down with the questions, what would you say when you look back to you starting your law firm? So back when you were lifting your firm off the ground, what advice would you give yourself that, I mean, you mentioned hire faster. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that stands out that you would say, like, Melanie, listen?
Um, I I think I would probably try to convince myself that I could let go of more things than I did. You
Mm,
know, like I remember hiring my first employee and, you know, I didn't even know what to do with her, frankly. Like, I was like,
mhm.
"Well, what do you do?" You know, and at the time, I hired someone that didn't have a lot of experience either, and so it was kinda like she didn't know what to do either, and so I was a very bad leader at that point in my career, and she was n you know, she didn't have enough information or knowledge to be able to, point me in the right direction, so we were kinda I felt like we were a little bit like the blind leading the blind there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely, I think, um, if I had had the foresight or the knowledge to, you know, think through the things that I was doing, and I mean, it can be as easy as like just make a list of everything you do,
Mhm.
and check off what are the things that require a license, what are the things
Mhm.
that require, experience, what are the things, and chances are there's things on there that don't require either, frankly.
Mhm.
And so being able to just have the forethought to think those things through instead of trying to figure them out as you go, I think would have been a lot easier. So being able to focus on what can I let go of, or what is going to be easier for me to let go of than other things, and kind of prioritizing those things. I mean, even to this day, I do that. Like, I
Mm,
still make a list of everything I'm doing, and I'm like, wait, why am I doing this? Why don't I have this person do that?
mhm.
And that still, I think, serves me well and would have served me well back then as well.
Yeah. That's so, so good. Well, okay, maybe tell everybody a little bit, like, how can they find you? What solutions do you have for them, and how could they work with you?
Sure. Yeah. So, Streamline Legal helps law firms get the most out of their practice management software. So, we help firms by helping them design procedures, building it out in the software, training their team on how to use it. And it's just been a great experience for us. It's as far as where to find us, we're online at Streamlined.legal.
Mhm,
And we are on social media everywhere. Search for Streamline Legal.
mhm,
Feel free to reach out to us on Facebook, phone, email, whatever is easiest for you. But yeah, it's been a really great experience to see these firms be able to, basically take things that they were already doing, just not consistently or not regularly, and, be able to help them build a process that really smooths out their workflow and
mhm,
actually buys them time to focus on other things, whether it's
mm,
building the business or their personal lives or whatever.
mhm.
But that's really the result of the work that we're doing, and we're super excited to be doing it.
That's so great. At the consulting firm I used to work, we I worked with dentists and doctors mostly, and so there was one of the trainings I would lead or go in and do was maximizing their software, basically. And it's unbelievable how it's similar in legal. I can feel it. I'm not an expert in legal software, and that's gonna be somebody else's thing, but
Sure.
you. But but I r j it's the same in that you almost need a master's degree in the software to really fully be able to utilize it on your own, like, build out all the capabilities and functionalities and all of that. It's there, and if you do spend time with it, you could do it, or you could, like, have somebody help show you how to get all this stuff in line and really utilize the software that you have. But it's such a waste if you don't utilize it, because it's most
Exactly.
of the time there's so much power behind it that you are just letting sit there, and so it's
And
really
paying
nice to
for.
and
Yeah, and
paying
paying
for.
for.
And
Yeah.
so it's nice to have someone be able to come in and show you. I mean, it'll change your life. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I know
It
that
did.
from the doctor dentist world. It's the same with lawyers. It's the same with any industry. Like,
Mhm.
really using what you have and what you're paying for to its fullest, functionality will change your world. Yeah.
It did for me. I mean, that's exactly why I started this business, was because I had that life-changing experience, and I thought, I want to share this with everybody. Like I don't want to have to meet another attorney that just feels like bogged down by their business, and I want to be able to show them there is a better way. And
Mhm.
that's what we're doing. I'm excited.
Yeah. So good. Thank you so much for being on today. I really
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
Oh my
Thank
gosh.
you. I've had a blast.
Yeah, me too. So until next time, we'll do this again. All
Let's.
right. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.